Canada is trying to deport a man who has been in Canada for 30 years. 27 of those 30 years, he held permanent residence. He worked, paid taxes, and raised his children in Canada. But why are they trying to deport him now? This is not a story about a broken system trying to punish an innocent man or a mistake by IRCC. The first thing that came to my mind when I read that news was, how can somebody hold permanent residence for 27 years without taking the next step to become a citizen in Canada? His story is a reminder that permanent residency is not the same as citizenship. And despite the word permanent, PRO status can still be lost. So if you're already eligible for Canadian citizenship and you're still putting it off, this is a reminder that you should go and do the needful right away. I also put off my citizenship for a while. Now this man, Roman Slepsilck, I can't pronounce his last name correctly, so we'll just call him Roman. Roman came to Canada with his brother in 1997. They were refugees from Czech Republic, running away from the political persecution over there in Czech Republic, and they came to Canada to seek asylum. In 1998, they granted them asylum, and in 1999, they became permanent residents in Canada. He built his life here in Canada, went back to Czech Republic in 2001 to bring his 2 daughters and his then wife to Canada. Over the years, he traveled several times back to Czech Republic. And some reports will say he traveled about 7 times, or that's say 8 times, but he traveled several times back home to Czech Republic for funerals, for different things. According to reports, he also renewed his Czech Republic passport twice during those years. Meanwhile, in 2012, the Canadian government passed a strict and unforgiving immigration law that if a refugee's protection is seized or revoked, the refugee automatically and immediately lose their permanent residency as well, without any humanitarian review. So in 2020, Roman was returning to Canada from a trip he took to Czech Republic to care for his sick brother back home, and an immigration officer flagged him. And all those trips he has been taking all these years were the basis for the government argument that he no longer needed the protection of the government of Canada because he reavailed himself to the government of Czech Republic. That means it looks like you're no longer afraid of your government back home. So give us back our Canadian PR because you have ceased to be a protected person. So his refugee protection was seized and he lost his permanent residency. He became removable and was facing deportation. Other people with protected status have traveled back home and even used their passports of their home countries to go back home. But if they were able to prove that they were in hiding, they were still afraid of the government while they went back home, because the Canadian government recognizes that yes, there may be some times that you may just need to go back home and you are still a citizen of that country. So it depends on how your activities go. That's how they will look at your case. So there's a case I read about. The man went back to China, renewed his passport, Chinese passport, used it to get back to China. But he proved that he was in hiding all throughout. He was still afraid of the Chinese government. So he did not lose his protected person status. But in this case, I don't think Roman was able to prove that he was still afraid of his government back home. I like to look at the two sides of things. It's unfortunate where he's finding himself. On Reddit, you hear people say, oh, he stayed in Canada for that long and he did not want to become Canadian citizen, but he chose to renew his home country's passport. From all I've seen in this case, it didn't look like he simply did not want to be a Canadian citizen. His 2 daughters he brought to Canada are now Canadian citizens. According to him and members of his family, his English literacy was a major barrier for him. He didn't speak English and he couldn't attend English classes. He said when he was given his PRO, he started working and providing for his family, so he didn't go for English classes and he didn't take the test. But he said he planned to apply for Canadian citizenship when he turned 55, because at 55, you no longer have to take a test and do all those things. You just apply and show up for your ceremony. But the trouble started before he turned 55. According to court papers, Roman saw permanent residence like many of us. You know, I used to think that permanent residence is just as good as citizenship just that you can't travel on the Canadian passport and you can't vote. According to him, in his affidavit, he said, I always thought that having permanent residence meant that I was Canadian and that my status was secure if I paid my taxes and fulfilled all of my duties as a Canadian. Permanent residence gives you the right to stay in Canada permanently. But citizenship gives you the right to become Canadian citizen. Even according to Canadian law, once a refugee becomes a Canadian citizen, they cease to be a protected person. They are not Canadian citizens. So they cannot revoke your protected person status because you are already not a protected person. But if you are still a permanent resident holder, you're still a protected person. So if you do anything that contradicts your protected person status, you can lose your permanent residence and thereby lose your right to remain in Canada. Remember, Roman and his brother actually came to Canada together as refugees. Now, Roman is facing deportation while his brother is not. And something the brother said that really struck me was that, Roman is the one that looks after everybody. When somebody is sick, somebody needs help, he's always there for everybody. Here's the irony. That brother is not facing deportation. But Roman, the one that shows up for everybody, that goes back home for funerals, check on people that are sick, that is the person that is facing deportation. The point I'm making is not be selfish. Don't sacrifice for people. No. But all I'm thinking and seeing in this case is don't sacrifice blindly when your immigration status, your career, your health, your finances are in question. Now, this man came to Canada as a refugee, so you may be thinking, this does not concern you. You came through express entry or you started from work permit and then got your PRO. But you have to know, PRO can also lose status and laws keep changing. Before 2012, Roman would have been fine. But because of that law passed in 2012, that's why he's losing his permanent resident status. Like I always say, these policies keep changing. Maybe he didn't know there was a law like that. He thought, I could travel. And ignorance is never an excuse before the law. The court has ruled that he should be deported. And that's where they are. Even his daughters, his brother, everybody is sad about it. But the court is not emotional. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're already qualified to apply for citizenship, please don't delay any longer. Even though you didn't come as a refugee, these laws keep changing. Just go do the needful. The exams are not too hard, the fees are not too high. Just get your Canadian citizenship and know that that's done and dusted for you. All you need to do is now renew your passport. Join my newsletter, Settled Not For Less. I'll leave a link in the description and you'll find the QR code you can scan here. Also, I made a video about a woman who had Canadian PRO for over 10 years, left Canada and tried to come back, but was not allowed. You can also check that video here. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.